So, here's a quick question for you all. You've got a very popular licensed comic book. So popular that it's going to continue after what was originally supposed to be its ending. In fact, in this ending, you've tied up as many loose ends as possible and even killed off the main villain of the story, essentially putting the main conflict of the book to rest. But now you have to continue the story beyond what you originally intended. What do you do? Well, in Sonic's case, hand off a bunch of issues to various one-shot writers in the hopes of keeping your audience on board while you think of a long-term solution to the fact that you essentially have no more ongoing stories, and the man who was originally head writer is now working full-time on a brother book to this one. This resulted in a multitude of, shall we say, very strange stories over the next several issues, and today's story, written by one Carl Ballers, is one of them. Ballers, of course, would go on to become the main writer of the Sonic comic, while Ken was busy turning the echidnas into his own private playground, and would go on to create several of the original characters and storylines that would help shape the Archie universe following Endgame. This isn't one of those issues, though, but we'll get into that in a moment. The cover art is properly celebratory following the defeat of Robotnik, with all of our main characters, and Amy, standing in joy as confetti falls around them, and we get a couple of cameos, specifically from Bean the Duck and Astel in the foreground. It's a really good cover, I think, though some of the proportions are a bit weird, even for Sonic and Friends. The arms all look a bit more stick-like, and the head's a bit heavier than usual. Now, I've stopped mentioning the text pages for a while because they've stopped being worth mentioning, but this one in particular I feel is worth mentioning just for the fact that once again, we have text on an image that is rather difficult to read. The background image is just too busy, and the bolding of certain words makes the letters bleed into themselves and one another, making them grating to read. So we're already not off to a good start, and the artwork on the actual next page doesn't fill me with confidence either. We kick off the story with Sonic and Friends presenting him with a medal for bravery, though we're given a special peek at this weird little bug here. That's foreshadowing for you. Not really. Later that night, Sonic is awoken from his race car bed by Sally, who says she has a secret that she needs to talk to him about in private, out away from the village. But once she's lured him a good distance away, she has a group of combots jump him, revealing herself to be a robot. Sonic dashes off, wondering how the hell this could happen with Robotnik gone. He's rescued by Tails, who swoops in and grabs him, lifting him into the air. Sonic's contacted by some sort of holographic projection of Uncle Chuck just as a buzz bomber starts to turbo boost after them. They pass over a large crab claw robot, and then Tails reveals that, just like Sally, he is a robot, and drops Sonic down towards the crab. But Sonic manages to avoid them by spinning so hard that he tunnels down into the earth. He's once again confronted by an image of Uncle Chuck, but ignores it, thinking it's another trick. He pops out of the ground near Bunny, who looks like she's in pretty rough shape, but as anyone can tell from this nightmare face right here, she is also full-on demon robot as well, and Sonic rushes off to the Lake of Rings. He grabs a ring, but when Bunny shows up again, he uses it to restrain her. Somehow, I don't know, the artwork is not very clear here. Sonic rushes back to the entrance of Knothole, running down the wooden slide where he once again sees his Uncle Chuck's projection, though it only speaks in gibberish. Again, he ignores it, heading for the safety of Knothole, only to run straight into the barrel of laser fire surrounded by his roboticized friends, and Robotnik apparently alive and well. While Sonic is initially resistant, Robotnik points out that not only does he have all of Sonic's friends under his control, but he also has a massive collection of magic rings, apparently everything that Sonic could have used to save himself or his friends. Robotnik offers the chance to join them, and end his suffering and misery with all of the other robots chanting "Join us" over and over again. But then, Sonic realizes that something just doesn't feel right. And just like that, another hologram of his uncle appears, now talking fine, while Robotnik and the others begin to digitize and disappear. Robotnik starting to talk in the same sort of gibberish that Chuck had been speaking in before. And then Sonic wakes up, back in his bed with some sort of massive helmet on his head, surrounded by everyone else, safe and sound. As it turns out, his award had been booby-trapped with some sort of virus that caused him to have a nightmare so powerful that it seemed real, and had he given in to Robotnik, he would have been trapped in there forever. Not sure how that works, but okay, and the helmet he was wearing was something that Chuck jerry-rigged to try and warn him about what was happening. Sonic initially thinks Robotnik might have done something from beyond the grave for this, but Chuck says that it definitely wasn't Robotnik, shocking everyone, while the issue ends with Sonic musing who it could have been who did this. So yeah, this issue is weird and strange and really shows the first signs that the series might be having a tough time to function without the classic Sonic vs. Robotnik constant that it's had since the beginning. I don't think the story is terrible, just incredibly generic for what it's supposed to be, and while this is early work from Carl Ballers, I can't recall if this was ever really properly resolved, and we don't even get any real sort of clues or hints to build the mystery. Instead, Chuck just says that he knows it wasn't Robotnik who did this, but doesn't elaborate on that fact at all, and the issue just sort of ends. As a horror story, this issue is passable, as the reveal of each of the roboticized characters is a good bit of nightmare fuel, but the plot itself holds little weight because we know from the start that it's a nightmare world, and that this can't be what's happening for real, especially considering that this is sort of similar to the story beats in Bunny's Nightmare, just as a reversal of situations. And what was up with highlighting the bug earlier in the issue? It's never brought up again, and it isn't really given any significance. If it was supposed to be a clue as to what happened to Sonic, it's not a very good clue and is never called back to. So it's not even really a Chekhov's gun, either. I will say that the characterization is at least decent, though there isn't really much of it here, but the dialogue isn't grating or anything. I do wish that, for our first issue after Robotnik's defeat, the series would have slowed down a little bit, let our heroes breathe a little, show how things were starting to recover from everything that was happening during Endgame. But nope, we're right back into the thick of things, it seems. No rest for the weary, as they say, quite literally in this case. Art-wise, I've already heavily criticized Sam Maxwell's artwork in the Battle Royale special where it was featured, but here, while a lot of the same criticisms can be applied, I do think his form of artwork works well for the more nightmarish story that this issue was trying to tell. The designs for Sonic's roboticized friends are legitimately frightening and imposing, and the expressions that they take during the nightmare wouldn't look out of place in an episode of Kakigurui. Everywhere else, though, well, that's where the issues start to emerge. For those that aren't supposed to be nightmare creatures, it's a 50-50 shot if they look like they're proportioned properly, or if they don't look weird in some way. And not the charming weird either, just flat out ugly at times. What's more, Maxwell seems to have some sort of weird fetish for really close zoom-in shots because they are quite prevalent throughout the entire issue, to the point where they sort of distract from everything else that's happening in the panels. Like the situation where Sonic uses a power ring to tie up Bunny. Not only do the panels not really flow well to show the action, but we can barely tell that's what's happening because of how closely zoomed in the panel is. Oh, and the backgrounds are also pretty poor. Apart from a few specific glamour shots here and there, like Nighttime Knothole, and a few of the shots in the interior of Sonic's room, they're either incredibly simple or completely non-existent, just a big blotch of color behind a character. It's very disappointing, especially after reading the Knuckles books for the last half dozen reviews, which all had great background work and pretty consistent character designs all throughout. And again, the only reason the art works as well as it does here is because of the type of story it's trying to tell, where the warped and uncanny look of the characters enhances the nightmare that Sonic finds himself in. Outside the nightmare though, not so much. Next time we'll be sticking with the main book for at least a little while longer as we take a look at one of the strangest stories in the entire series, and I do not say that lightly, with issue 52. I'll see you all next time.